My dear brothers and sisters, let me ask you something very important, and please answer it honestly in your heart. Have you ever walked into your own home and felt uneasy without knowing why? Have you noticed constant arguments, sudden anger, laziness in worship, or a heavy feeling that refuses to leave no matter how much you clean, organize, or try to stay positive? Many people think this is just stress or coincidence. But the Prophet ﷺ warned us that homes empty of Allah's remembrance become easy places for shayateen to settle. The good news, my dear brothers and sisters, is that Allah did not leave us unprotected. There are verses so powerful that shayateen cannot stay where they are recited. Today, I will share with you 5 verses that every Muslim home needs, verses that bring peace back, remove unseen harm, and fill your house with the light of Allah's protection. The first verse every Muslim home must hold on to is Ayatul Kursi, because it is not just a verse to be memorized, it is a declaration of who truly controls everything. In this verse, Allah introduces Himself as Al-Ay and Al-Qayyum, the ever-living and the one who sustains every soul, every breath and every moment of existence. Nothing happens without His knowledge, nothing moves without His permission, and nothing can overpower His will. When you recite Ayatul Kursi, you are reminding yourself and the unseen world that Allah is in full control, not fear, not people, and certainly not shayateen. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ gave us a clear and powerful promise regarding this verse. He taught us that when Ayatul Kursi is recited at night, a guardian from Allah is appointed over the person, and no shaitan can come near them until morning. This means that anxiety, nightmares, whispers, fear, and unseen disturbances are pushed away by the permission of Allah. Think about that, my dear brothers and sisters. One verse, spoken with sincerity and belief, becomes a shield stronger than anything we could ever build for ourselves. Shayateen fear Ayatul Kursi because this verse exposes their reality. It declares that Allah's knowledge surrounds everything, that His throne extends over the heavens and the earth, and that protecting all of creation does not tire Him in the slightest. Shayateen thrive on making people feel powerless and alone, but Ayatul Kursi crushes that illusion by reminding us that Allah is always watching, always guarding, and never absent from our lives. This is why it is so important to make Ayatul Kursi part of your daily routine. Recite it after every salah because it seals your prayer with protection. Recite it before sleeping, so your night is covered by Allah's care. Recite it when you enter your home, so your house is wrapped in remembrance instead of neglect. When these words are repeated consistently, the atmosphere of the home changes, restlessness begins to fade, hearts soften, and peace slowly replaces tension. Teach Ayatul Kursi to your children, even if they are very young. Let them grow up hearing these words so they learn that safety comes from Allah, not from fear. Let this verse be heard within your walls, not only silently but aloud at times, so that your home becomes familiar with the remembrance of Allah. A house that lives with Ayatul Kursi is not just protected, it is honored. Such a home becomes heavy for shayateen to remain in, yet light and welcoming for angels who bring mercy, tranquility, and blessings by the permission of Allah. The second powerful protection that every Muslim home needs is the last 2 verses of Surah Al-Baqarah. These verses are not just words to be recited at night. They are a source of deep comfort, reassurance, and divine security for the heart and the home. In these verses, Allah speaks directly to the believer, reminding us that He knows our limits, understands our struggles, and never places a burden upon us that we are incapable of carrying. When life feels heavy and the heart feels tired, these verses come as mercy, not judgment. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ gave us a clear guarantee regarding these verses. He told us that whoever recites the last 2 verses of Surah Al-Baqarah at night, they will be sufficient for them. Sufficient against fear, sufficient against harm, sufficient against shayateen and unseen disturbances. This means that when these verses are recited with sincerity before sleeping, Allah Himself takes responsibility for your protection through the night. Shayateen cannot disturb a heart that is resting under Allah's care. These verses are powerful because they strengthen the believer's relationship with Allah. They remind us that we hear and obey even when we do not fully understand the wisdom behind what happens to us. They teach us to turn to Allah for forgiveness, mercy, and help, instead of turning to worry and despair. Shayateen thrive when a person feels hopeless and overwhelmed, but these verses remove that weakness by reminding the believer that Allah is always near and always fair. When you recite these verses in your home, you are filling the space with trust in Allah. You are declaring that your household depends on Allah alone, not on worldly protection or human strength. Over time, this remembrance softens hearts, reduces arguments, and brings a sense of calm that cannot be explained by words. Many people notice that after making these verses a habit, their sleep improves, their thoughts become clearer, and the atmosphere of the home becomes lighter and more peaceful. Make it a nightly routine to recite the last 2 verses of Surah Al-Baqarah before sleeping. Recite them yourself. Recite them together as a family when possible, and even recite them softly over your children as they sleep. Do not rush these verses. Read them with understanding and reflection. Let them sink into your heart. A home that ends its day with these verses is a home that sleeps under Allah's protection, and where Allah protects, no shaitan can cause harm. The third powerful verse that every Muslim home should hold firmly to is Surah Al-Falaq, a short surah in words but immense in protection and meaning. This surah teaches us how to seek refuge in Allah from every form of harm, whether that harm is visible or hidden, known or unknown. Many people underestimate the power of this surah because of its short length, but the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ treated it as one of the strongest shields against evil. Length does not determine power when the words come directly from Allah. In Surah Al-Falaq, Allah teaches us to seek protection from the evil of what He has created, from the darkness when it settles, and from hidden harms that operate quietly without being noticed. Shayateen love darkness, secrecy, and neglect. They influence when hearts are unaware and when remembrance is absent. This surah exposes that darkness by placing everything under Allah's control. When you recite Surah Al-Falaq, you are declaring that no evil, no jealousy, no whisper, and no unseen harm has authority over you except by Allah's permission. The Prophet ﷺ used Surah Al-Falaq daily as part of his personal protection. He would recite it in the morning and in the evening, and he would recite it before sleeping. He also taught us to blow lightly over our hands after reciting it and then wipe over our bodies. This action is not a ritual without meaning. It is a way of placing ourselves, our minds, and our hearts under Allah's protection. Shayateen cannot remain where a person consciously seeks refuge in Allah, because refuge itself removes their influence. When Surah Al-Falaq is recited inside the home, the environment begins to change. Feelings of fear, unexplained anxiety, and restlessness often decrease. This is because the surah removes the spiritual openings through which shayateen operate. It reminds us that Allah is the creator of light and daybreak, and that darkness, no matter how strong it feels, never lasts forever. This reminder alone brings comfort and stability to the heart. Make Surah Al-Falaq part of your daily life. Recite it when you wake up, before you sleep, and whenever you feel uneasy or disturbed. Recite it for your children before they sleep, especially if they feel afraid or restless. Recite it softly in your home so that its message becomes familiar within your walls. Over time, this surah builds a protective atmosphere that pushes away unseen harm and replaces it with a sense of safety and peace. A home that regularly recites Surah Al-Falaq becomes a place where darkness is not welcomed and fear does not settle. It becomes a space where reliance on Allah is clear and constant. Shayateen find no comfort in such a home, because every corner is guarded by the remembrance of Allah, and where Allah's refuge is sought sincerely, no evil can remain. The fourth powerful verse that every Muslim home must protect itself with is Surah An-Naas. And this surah is especially important because it deals directly with the most dangerous weapon of shayateen, whispers. Shayateen do not usually attack openly. They enter quietly through thoughts, doubts, fears, sudden anger, overthinking, and negative assumptions. Many people feel disturbed in their homes without knowing why. They feel uneasy, impatient, irritated with loved ones, or constantly worried for no clear reason. Very often, this is the effect of whispers that slowly poison the heart. Surah An-Naas was revealed as a cure for exactly this type of unseen harm. In Surah An-Naas, Allah teaches us to seek refuge in Him as the Lord of mankind, the King of mankind, and the God of mankind. These three titles are not repeated without wisdom. Allah is reminding us that He is the one who raises us, the one who rules over everything, and the one who alone deserves our reliance and worship. When you recite the surah, you are placing yourself and your home under Allah's direct authority. Shayatin cannot challenge this declaration because it strips them of all influence and power. This surah specifically mentions the whisperer who withdraws, meaning shayatin whisper into the hearts of people and then retreat when Allah is remembered. This alone should give you hope, my dear brothers and sisters. It tells us that shayatin are not brave, strong, or permanent. They flee when Allah's name is mentioned sincerely. They retreat when a believer becomes aware and turns back to Allah. The problem is not that shayatin are powerful. The problem is that people often forget to seek protection. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ used Surah An-Naas constantly. He recited it in the morning and evening before sleeping and during moments of discomfort. He taught us to use it not only for physical harm, but also for emotional and spiritual disturbance. This includes sudden sadness, fear, intrusive thoughts, anger without reason, and constant negative thinking. These are doors shayatin use to disturb peace within the home and break harmony between family members. When Surah An-Naas is recited regularly in a house, it begins to cleanse the environment from unseen pressure. The heart feels lighter, thoughts become calmer, arguments reduce. People begin to feel more grounded and emotionally stable. This is because the surah directly targets the source of inner disturbance. It reminds us that not every thought comes from us and not every fear deserves our attention. By seeking refuge in Allah, we learn to separate ourselves from destructive whispers. Make Surah An-Naas a daily habit in your home. Recite it in the morning and evening as part of your protection. Recite it before sleeping so your mind rests peacefully instead of wandering into fear and anxiety. Recite it when you feel overwhelmed, angry, or mentally exhausted. Recite it for your children when they feel scared, restless, or unable to sleep. Teach them that turning to Allah is the strongest response to fear. It is also important to recite Surah An-Naas with understanding, not just repetition. Know that when you say these words, you are actively seeking Allah's protection from every whisper that tries to pull you away from peace, faith, and balance. You are closing the doors through which shayatin enter the heart. Over time, this practice builds emotional strength, spiritual clarity, and inner calm. A home that regularly recites Surah An-Naas becomes a place where whispers lose their power. Shayatin find it difficult to remain because their influence is exposed and rejected. Such a home becomes a refuge of peace, trust, and remembrance. And remember this, my dear brothers and sisters. When Allah is the protector of a house, no whisper, no fear, and no unseen harm can ever dominate it. The fifth and final protection that every Muslim home must take seriously is Surah Al-Baqarah as a whole, even if it is recited gradually or played regularly within the house. This surah holds a unique position in the Qur'an when it comes to removing shayatin. And the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ spoke about it with absolute clarity. He said that shayatin flee from a house in which Surah Al-Baqarah is recited. Notice the wording, my dear brothers and sisters. He did not say shayatin are weakened, delayed, or disturbed. He said they flee, they cannot stay, they cannot tolerate it. They have no power against it. Surah Al-Baqarah is a surah that establishes Allah's authority in every aspect of life. It speaks about belief, obedience, patience, struggle, reliance on Allah, and the reality of this world and the next. Shayatin thrive in confusion, neglect, and spiritual emptiness, but Surah Al-Baqarah fills the home with clarity, discipline, and divine order. When this surah is present in a house, it leaves no space for shayatin to operate comfortably. Many people think that they must recite the entire surah in one sitting for it to be effective. And while reciting it fully is extremely rewarding, Allah's mercy is vast. Even if you recite it over several days or listen to it attentively being played in your home, the effect remains powerful. The key is consistency and respect for the words of Allah. A home that regularly hears Surah Al-Baqarah becomes familiar with Qur'an, and shayatin cannot survive in an environment that is constantly reminded of Allah. This surah also addresses many of the spiritual weaknesses shayatin use to attack homes. It speaks about laziness in prayer, attachment to the dunya, arrogance, forgetfulness of Allah, and lack of trust in Him. When these weaknesses are corrected through the reminders of Surah Al-Baqarah, the doors shayatin use begin to close one by one. Peace returns not suddenly, but steadily and firmly, because it is built on remembrance. Many families who make Surah Al-Baqarah a regular part of their home notice a clear change over time. Arguments decrease, sleep improves, children become calmer, the house feels lighter and more welcoming. This is not coincidence, and it is not imagination. This is the barakah of Allah's words. Angels love homes where Qur'an is recited, and where angels gather, shayatin have no place. Make it